Nancy Pelosi's Congress, through the Capitol Police, wanted to shut this case down, and the legal position has not changed under Speaker McCarthy. It's not just Democrats that we have to fight for the truth, it's Republicans. And we talked about last week, and I'll talk to you again about this now. We had a hearing in federal court this week before a relatively new judge who was just appointed by President Biden, Judge Reyes, over the January 6 videos and emails that Judicial Watch is seeking from the U.S. Capitol Police. And there were, according to various court filings, 14,000 hours of video. According to court filings in our case, I think is as interesting, 271 emails that they don't want to turn over to us under law. Now, Congress is not subject excuse me, to the Freedom of Information Act, but it is, we argue, subject to the common law right to public access to government information, right? You don't need a FOIA law to go ask a government official for certain government documents, whether they be members of the judiciary or even members of Congress. And this is a right that predates the Constitution. A common law right is the type of law that's just out there, right? It's just seen as a given. And when we first filed this case, I think it's now 2 years ago, the Pelosi Congress came to us. Their defense of this was, these aren't public records. Even if they were, there's no public interest in their release. And Congress has sovereign immunity, meaning we haven't been blessed to sue them in court on this. And this case has bounced between 3 judges. It was initially before, ironically, Judge Jackson, who's now on the Supreme Court. And then she obviously went to the Supreme Court, and it was moved to Judge Pan, P-A-N, who had the case for some time. And then she was elevated to the appeals court by President Biden, and so it sat, and then it was finally assigned to Judge Reyes, who's trying to figure out what to do. And what happened in court the other day, so it was at the federal courthouse here in the District of Columbia. Michael Bekesha is the Judicial Watch senior attorney who's representing Judicial Watch in this case. And what happens in these court cases in FOIA often is if there's a hearing and it's here and my schedule allows me to do so, I'll go over and I'll sit at the table with the attorney representing the client, the corporation of Judicial Watch as its president. So I get to sit there and I have to be polite. I gotta keep my hands folded and grin and bear it when things go poorly, and grin and bear it and be calm even when things go well in the court. And this was a mix of both, unfortunately. And on the other side were 3 attorneys, and we obviously have Michael, 2 with the Justice Department, and 1 a general counsel for the U.S. Capitol Police. So this is a case, as I said, promoted by Nancy Pelosi as being Nancy Pelosi's Congress, through the Capitol Police, wanted to shut this case down, and the legal position has not changed under Speaker McCarthy. So you can imagine how frustrating it is to me to be in court against people who answer to Speaker McCarthy now on this core transparency issue. And they came at the last minute, the day before the hearing essentially, and told the court, well, you know, so public records under the common law right to access is is much more narrow a section of records than records available under the Freedom of Information Act. You don't get everything you might think you can get. They essentially have to be final government documents showing government legal consequential actions. And one way around that, according to the government, is that anything that's, quote, security information is not a public record under the law. So what they have decided to do is, and the U.S. Capitol Police official in charge, with relevant oversight, has decided to designate all of those records as security information, all the videos as security information. So under their theory, assuming that there is a right to sue for these records under law. They're not covered as public records because they're designated as security information. All of them. So Speaker McCarthy should be asking or be asked why it is the U.S. Capitol Police is taking this legal position. Is he supported? He has oversight through his appointee on the Capitol Police Board, the House Sergeant of Arms. What's going on there? And they told us in court the other day that there's going to be a meeting of the Capitol Board that was supposed to take place, what's today? Friday? When was our hearing? Tuesday. It was supposed to take place Wednesday, the day after the hearing. We don't know if the meeting took place. And where the board was going to vote to designate them, or at least it was on the agenda to consider that, and it was likely to happen. But we don't know if the meeting took place because they have secret meetings on Capitol Hill about the security of the Capitol and the conduct of the police. The U.S. Capitol Police, by the way, is the only agency, police agency in America, as best I can tell, that isn't subject to basic transparency requirements that other police agencies are subject at the local, state, or federal level. It's a law unto itself in terms of transparency. So I don't know if the secret meeting took place or whether they're going to bless this Capitol Police position that all those videos are secret records because they're, quote, security information. They're obviously not all security information. That's necessarily an abuse. And I want to know what Speaker McCarthy is going to do about it. Is that going to be his legal position? Because he has at least one vote through his appointee. So the hearing went the way it went, and the court did demand, order the government to give us a bit more information on the emails that it was seeking to withhold. There are 271 emails at issue, not all of which we'd be able to gain access to, even if we were right that they're public records that should be released, because as I said, some records would automatically be exempt from public disclosure, but other records wouldn't. Why is McCarthy sitting on this? I mean, there's the issue of this case, but of course he can just release them all. I know he's released a few videos or granted access to some on the January 6th videos, but these videos aren't generally accessible to the American people under law. Why is that? What are they hiding? I mean, I know Nancy Pelosi has a lot to hide. I mean, she was responsible in part for security that day. I mean, that's a Pelosi riot as much as anything, because the lack of security led in part to that disturbance. So, no excuse for this. So Michael Pekesha and I came out of the courthouse, and I talked to Michael a little bit about what happened in the case. I described it to you just now, but Michael summarized it in his own great style, and certainly he's worth listening to since he's the lawyer trying to figure our way through this. So let's go to my discussion with Michael. We're here outside the federal courthouse here in D.C. Our attorney Michael Pekesha was just arguing on behalf of Judicial Watch's right to gain access to the January 6th videos and emails, and it looks like they dropped a little bit of a last-minute bomb on us by suggesting they're all security records and we can't get them.
Yeah, for the past 2 years, they've said 17 out of 14,000 hours with security information. Now they're saying that maybe tomorrow the Capitol Police Board will designate all 14,000 hours.
The judge seems not interested in designating them as public records to begin with. That's unusual. She described this as an insurrection, but the videos that have been separated and kept in a file about what happened that day aren't public records. How does that work?
You know, look, everybody thinks these records are important. The public should be able to see them. Hopefully the judge is going to go back and think about it, and she said she would consider the argument that when these records were pulled out of the normal process and, you know, they were created new, and at that point they were preserved for history, and we just want access to it so the American public can see, you know, all the video from that day and decide for themselves what happened on January 2nd.
Well, as you can tell, we were outside in a summer windy rainstorm. I thought we did a pretty good job considering the weather. But that's the challenge we face. The judge wasn't terribly friendly to our cause. It's pretty clear she knew who Judicial Watch was. At one point, Michael said something about, many people have called this issue, because I raised the point about her calling it an insurrection. Michael said, well, a lot of people said this is an insurrection. Well, let's get all the videos. And she just inserted herself in response, saying, well, it is an insurrection. Well, why did she have to say that? I don't know why. And, it was obviously. Now, on the other hand, she gave us the time of day, listened to our arguments. She's unlikely to rule in our favor, but at least she's giving us the chance to make our case. And at least we're able to be in court against the entire United States Congress through their Capitol Hill Police Board to demand accountability and transparency. And as long as this process continues to allow us to gain access to the courts to hold the government accountable, even if we win, even if we lose, I hope we win, I think it's good because we're educating you about what's really going on through the process. And you can hold those who are responsible for hiding documents, like Speaker McCarthy in part. Senator Schumer has a role to play here, and so does Joe Biden. I think there are 3 members of the Capitol Police Board who vote. The Sergeant of Arms for the House, an appointee of the Speaker, in this case McCarthy. The Sergeant of Arms for the Senate, who is an appointee of Senator Schumer, the majority leader of the Senate, and then the architect of the Capitol, who is an appointee of the President, confirmed by the Senate. So all, the Congress and the President all have a role to play in hiding these records from us. And but this is an important case, and Judicial Watch isn't going to let up. We're going to get more information about what's in the emails, at least better description of what they entail, so that we can and the court can figure out whether there's a good faith basis to withhold them. But I'm hoping the court sees through this canard that they're not public records. I guess she focused on the fact that under the definition of public records, they have to be, what was the phrase, created and maintained, right? And her point was, well, these were just videos that were running. They weren't created in a way to kind of show anything or do anything. They're just running. And Michael pointed out, well, no, that's not the case, because as soon as you took the videos and put them in a separate file, you created a new record, right? And so, yeah, they were created, these records at issue, for the purposes of investigating January 6th, uncovering what went on there, and all the other purposes we've learned. They're being used to put people in jail. These records are public records by any stretch of the imagination. So maybe the court will agree with us ultimately in the end. But this is what Judicial Watch has to do day in and day out. What seems to be clear-cut cases for transparency. Sometimes the courts aren't interested. Sometimes they have a weird flex, as the youngins like to say. So we'll see what happens here. And in the meantime, we can demand transparency from the House Republicans and Senator Schumer as well, because he's hiding this as well. It's hard for me to accept the notion that January 6th, allegedly, according to them, the Borg left here running Washington, D.C., is the worst day in American history, and then hide every single one of the videos from us under law, even as you use same-set videos to try to put people in jail. Unbelievable. And what's really frustrating is that McCarthy's legal position, as best we can tell, hasn't changed one iota from Nancy Pelosi's legal position on these documents. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.